but I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah, it's really it's a 3-phrase encouragement: like and share.
Oh yeah, like,
So,
share, and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe.
That's 3
okay,
words.
yeah,
There you go.
Yeah, so, I'm still in the process of trying to find space and time to be in the zone for writing the dissertation, and I made some progress today. I probably have a good 2 chapters worth of material just for this one chapter that I've been working on off and on for a while, and I'm right now just sort of focused on this matter of attention and awareness. And I was just rereading some Theodor Adorno. He was a German philosopher and a musicologist, someone who studies music in various ways. And he's also a social theorist, so he has some ideas about how society works. And I was just including some quotations from him in his critique of music, and specifically popular music, how it's just manufactured for the masses. It's just mediocrity. And he even describes it as something that's pre-digested for the listeners, that the composition actually is listening for the listener and defines for them what is good music per se. Doesn't really ever offer anything new or concrete. It's just or novel, really, in the best sense of the word novel, unique, but just kind of gives a sense of what he calls pseudo-individualization, which means this idea of like, yeah, this is what I like. This is the type of music that I like. And in reality, no, you're actually being told, what to like. You're being told what to pick from and to choose as your preference. And the casualty in all of this is what he would consider, as far as I'm rereading him now, I'm not an expert in him, but I've drawn on him in the past, the autonomy of music, or authenticity. So like music loses its actual purpose by being mass produced and packaged by the industry, by the entertainment industry, and you end up with people who aren't really thinkers for themselves or discriminating in any way.
Let me ask you about that. When you're talking about music in this kind of broad sense, are you negating the lyrics of the music, or are you including the lyrics of today's modern songs and whatnot?
That's a good question. Adorno did address popular music, and he's writing in the mid 20th century, so he does touch on jazz quite a bit and other popular styles. I don't recall in my very brief reading him addressing the lyrics. He is more concerned with the actual form of music, the compositional processes that occur.
The instruments beyond just the human.
Right. And so speaking, as a classically trained musician, when I listen to music, I hear music differently than other people. People who aren't classically trained in music. I hear form, I hear repetition, I hear changes and subtle changes in themes and variations and all this stuff. And that's a phrase that I want to get out of my vocabulary. We just talked about that in all this stuff. So I am working on changing that so I can be a true individual.
Oh, look at you.
There we go.
No pre-digested words.
Yeah, no pre-digested sayings from the sayer of the sayers of sayings. Right.
Like theologian brain rot right there.
How about it? Yeah. So he, coming from a very classically oriented Western music understanding, when you listen to Bach or Beethoven or Mozart, there's form and structure within the music. Sure. There's pattern repetition, and there's compositional techniques, right? Which I actually mentioned elsewhere in this version of chapter 1 that I'm writing right now. So let's talk about a little bit about MCU. So I do make mention, and I guess I should be careful because this is original material that I'm writing. Mm-hmm. Someone could steal my ideas. I will track you down and I will find you. No, I'm just kidding. I have a very specific set of skills. So
yeah, it's writing, not tracking. Let's be honest.
That's right. The only way I can take someone out is if I take them out to dinner. But
yeah.
So
he's good at that.
Yeah. We are fans of the MCU world,
for the most part.
And from last I heard, the MCU world and the DC world are combining to create a Batman Deadpool movie this year. At least that's what I've heard. I need to go back because I've not seen anything actual produced, just the plans for it. So as you and I and some of our friends have watched these continuing stories through different characters and popular MCU movies, now we've branched into DC.
Yeah. X-Men.
Yeah. As we watch these, I'm watching it in a certain way, not all the time. I'm not totally cognizant of this in this critical method, but I'm hearing this continual spinning out of material where you have to be familiar with one episode to know what's going on in the next series.
Yeah.
And there's it's a layering, it's a playing on of material and thematic material building towards something as a finished product. Who knows what the final story in the MCU is going to be, but they have,
well, they can't have a final story.
I know, because the multiverse is going to, it's endless possibilities. So we've got a huge problem there.
Multiverse plus, revenue streams.
Yeah, $8 billion since I think 1997.
Wow.
Something like that. So my point is there's actually a musical composition from the Baroque period. So we're talking Johann Sebastian Bach, called Fortspinnung. And it means to literally spin forth, Fortspinnung, to spin forth. And this compositional process, if you ever listen to a Baroque piece, you hear this continual spinning forth of material, and it becomes developed and played with, and the composer's skill is how they utilize this thematic material and alter it and change it and make use of it. So there is this same effect in the MCU. I keep saying MC, but it's MCU world.
Well, you keep saying MCU world, but MCU is Marvel Comic Universe, so you keep saying Marvel Comic Universe world.
Marvel Comic,
It's like chai tea, TT.
Yeah, it's like saying the Los Angeles Angels. It's the Angels, the Los Angeles Angels. the Angels. The Los Angeles Angels. the MC Universe world, or whatever it was.
We've broken it down.
Yeah.
Too much.
My point in saying all this is, how does this affect our attention, our skills at attention and awareness, when there's just this continual mass-produced, in some cases mediocrity, sometimes they're good stories, who knows. It's subjective. There's that pseudo-individualization of like, oh, I like this and this is really cool, I don't like that.
Sure.
You know, the movies watch themselves for the viewers, and the music, the compositions listen for the listeners. Where's our real self and our real desire and our real preference in all of this? Let me land this plane. Because if we're not aware of what's happening when we're engaging with Vorspielung in the music in the Baroque period, or the MCU context of different universes and storylines, if we're not aware of who we are, we lose our identity. And we lose our true self. And so we lose touch with how we're actually doing in the world. And so sometimes we might find ourselves on a Tuesday that feels like a Monday. You know, we've got a case of the Mondays on a Tuesday, and we're sort of like, in a zone that has no gravity, somewhere in outer space, just floating around with no sense of direction, up, down, sideways, back, forward, that sort of thing. And who wants to live like that? That's just absolute chaos and anxiety,
Right.
and frustration, because we're meant to have a direction, a goal in our life.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. You bring in mimetic desires and whatnot. There is a portion of us that wants to be like others, wants to fit in, but then there's also the case that society has pre-programmed us in a large part, like what you're talking about here, to be like each other, to follow one another. It's like which came first, the chicken or the egg, the mimetic desire or societal pressures? And so you have this kind of weird integration where, we live in a college town where, on one hand, the clothing today that people wear is, to a large degree, like the designers of that clothing, the designers know what we want, what exactly how we would want it. We know exactly what kind of brain things will start firing up because you overemphasize a certain trait or another trait, and so they will create that, but you will see 10 people walking together wearing the exact same kind of clothing, and it's not even a game day, it's just another day. And so it's like, okay, to one degree, we know what we like, and so we're creating that for ourselves. But on the other hand, at the same time, we want to be like others. So like there's a certain portion to where it's like it's healthy to fit in with a group. It is healthy to be a part of a community, but it's also not healthy when you don't think for yourself, when you don't have individualism, because everything's, as you put it, I like that term, pre-digested. It's already chewed down to the fundamentals, and that's what we have. And so it's also terrifying to think about how we apply that to, say, reading the Bible, because the Bible, we come at the Bible in this almost pre-digested way. We think that it's already set forth how it is, but it's set forth how it is by those who taught us. Those who taught us were taught by similar ones to them, if that makes sense. And so it's the blind leading the blind into reading this community letter from 2,000 years ago or more that played into the individualistic. It was not digested for you. It was not pre-processed. It was not. It was a beautiful mosaic of literature that now you have the opportunity to dive into. But if you're expecting it to be like every other piece of music today, or every other blog today, which we do expect it to be like that, then we're not going to get very far with it, and we're going to create a whole different religion that's not actually there.
Yeah. So this idea of being a part of the group versus being an actual individual, and maintaining some sort of clarity, some sort of distinct border, but also letting it be permeable, is an interesting thing, because I would go to church on Sundays at a Southern Baptist church, and I'm so thankful for that heritage and for many of the people that I knew there. We had a choir loft, a baptismal pool, and we were in the red brick building that was a sanctuary that was historic to the actual congregation itself, a landmark. This is a place where we met.
Yeah, for even the town.
Yeah, it's for where we met. The wooden pews, the stained glass windows, all of these structure things. And in my naivety, I had thought, well, this is how church happened from the very beginning. People would get together in this large assembly, and one person would be speaking, and we'd have musical instruments, and there would be art around. Not always the case, and obviously the beginnings of Christianity was much more home-based, which is one of the big reasons why it flourished so much in the early centuries. I'm saying that is because in my short-sightedness and in my youth, this was how Christianity was, and so there is a usefulness to appreciating something in its inherent singular individual merit. But then at some point along the line, you have to be able to have a broader lens to zoom out and say, no, wait a minute, what I'm experiencing right now is actually part of a larger context. And in doing that, you are able to see new things and have new perspectives and new insights. And what you realize is just what you said, the Christian faith itself is something that has been packaged, opened up, examined, played with, repackaged, transferred, opened up, played with, examined, and this has happened for centuries and centuries and centuries. So there's a lot of things about Christianity today that were not original to the original church, and I think in our own time and in our own generation, we're asking the questions like, what is the authentic? What is the stuff that's not been pre-digested that is appropriate for us today? How do I best apply my attention and my awareness to have a fulfilling and happy life and that is relatively stress-free? And so it's an interesting dilemma in the complexity of what's happening, especially in society right now in the last month.
Yeah.
We have a lot of pre-digested ideas that are spewing out on both sides of the political spectrum. We have a situation where it is so easy to take sides because each side seems so right.
It's even that mimetic pressure to take a side.
Yeah.
Like everybody's taking a side, so if you don't, you're going to find yourself not just on the wrong side of history, but irrelevant to history.
Yeah. So our vision becomes myopic, or we have tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Where we've got blinders on both sides, and it's just my side, my side, my side. As opposed to, wait a minute, there's actually another perspective here that needs to be understood, incorporated, examined, integrated, and brought into the conversation. It's interesting on the right side of the issue as well, politically speaking, as well as on the left. You have this intense feeling of righteousness. You are defending and standing up for justice as you define it on that side.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how radically we define justice differently?
And we are so entrenched in our different camps, and it does not help the human venture at all in growth and maturity.
No, so it's there's a memory that I have when I was in high school. This is 20. I'm gonna make myself sound real young right now for a lot of our viewers, but or old compared to who listens to this, but. That this is 2019, 2015 to 2019, those years, and I remember at some point in my junior or senior year, I told my friend, I was like, look, either we're going to go through what we're getting into right now, slowly but surely, is what we're going to face is either the only way to unify us is either if we have some sort of massive turning to religion for some reason or another, a natural disaster that we have to come together, or a full-blown war against some other country, not ourselves, to come together. I think that those are the only potential three ways that we can become unified again, is if we have to, out of necessity. But we've gotten to such prosperity that it is hard to agree, because we have redefined words so many times, like that repackaging and repackaging, even just in the short little span of lifetime that I've lived, that people don't know those words. And so people, I have a hard time entering into conversations with some individuals because I am so gung-ho about what do you mean by when you say that word. Oh, that's just semantics. You're just, no, but that's important right now. That's like critical today, is knowing, especially because I can tell that you probably have some different beliefs than I do. What do you mean by this word? Like institutional this, institutional that, or national, or religious, or Christian. What do you mean by these words? Because that will define what our conversation is actually about. Because we might be talking right past each other. There was also another question that popped into my head as you were talking about this and maybe this is kind of off the topic of what you were bringing in there, but it's interesting to me. You bring in how you growing up, you had stained glass murals. Well, I grew up in a bunch of non-denominational or Foursquare church. Where you only have sound dampeners on the wall in the main room, and the only picture that might be in this church is a little tiny picture in the hallway of the offices that is of the founding of the church. So at some point we decided, and I say we as in the side of the Reformation, away from Catholicism, the Protestant side of things. At some point we've really moved away from art, because art does not just tell you what the thing is. Art is meditative. You have to stare and ask questions and not know what that thing is, or what that angel is, or what it's depicting in this certain circumstance from 1,500 years ago, or more, depicting the saints and all these things, and monks and whatnot. And so it's at some point we got away from that to where the message, whatever the message is the whole point.
I'm reminded of a book. I forget the title. The author his name is Ken Wilson. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes. He writes about the Sistine Chapel in Rome, and he uses it as an illustration. I've been to the Sistine Chapel. I went there in 1990, I think it was, when I was still in high school, and it had not been renovated and restored and cleaned at that point. I forget when it was that they did it. I'm sure it was before you went there.
Yeah.
So you and I had two different experiences at the Sistine Chapel.
That's fun.
Which is kind of cool. And the point of this author was to say that after centuries of worship of God, all the candles and all the soot, the smoke and the soot forming on the painting, a massive mural dedicating worship had been covered over and darkened. And he noted the difference after the renovation, after the cleaning project. There was life and vitality and an entirely new message that was there. In fact, even a more positive message. So how I want to bring that into our conversation is what we're missing in today's society is communication. Someone pointed out to me recently, when I was in high school and earlier, you just didn't say certain things to certain people, because if you said something that was insulting, you would have the shit beaten out of you. Okay? But now, because we have social media, you can say whatever you want to say and not fear any type of reprisal and consequences. Now, I'm not advocating violence by any means,
right.
But what it has caused to happen is we don't listen to each other.
Yeah.
We just have our keyboard, and we're the warrior, and we're going to say what we want to say without any consequences.
No, we're encouraged to. We actually, our reward structure has become to say the most outrageous thing. That's how you get seen today.
That's how you get likes and views.
It's simply an algorithm, which is neither good nor bad. It's amoral, but it is there, and it is affecting us in an unhealthy way.
So the system itself is rigged against our ability to actually communicate, and it does that by saying you can communicate through this medium.
You should communicate.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we totally don't listen to each other. We're totally entrenched in our own camp of ideology. We think we're righteous, and we have our concept of justice, and it always comes down to violence. Now, here's the crazy part. You probably know this. There are now a lot of theories going around about who actually assassinated Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the person that they found, or is he a plant? Was there a bush somewhere on the side of a building? Was there a microphone that was actually weaponized to fire at him?
I've seen that a breakdown that it came from actually behind, entered through slowly but surely. That it like freeze framed through as it went and exited, instead of an entrance through here, it was an entrance through there.
So that's very interesting, because I saw a video that has him wearing the lapel mic, sort of what you and I used in the previous episode, that actually exploded and sent the bullet through his neck and out this side, which is why you see the explosion.
So many phones and cameras, and still we don't have a clue. It's like how...
And then you have these mysterious people in the crowd who seem to be holding devices, and then there's footage of people rushing towards Charlie Kirk and taking something and putting it in their pocket right away. So all these crazy theories, grasping at straws, grasping at explanations, and I'm not going to take a position on any one of them, because I know
it's not the topic of discussion.
I know what the media presents, and I know what people tend to believe. We don't communicate, and we are so inappropriately tied to the larger collective globally that I don't think there's really any way for critical thinking to happen in the person, any way of understanding, hey, these are actually my thoughts, as opposed to I'm going along with the mass, and I'm actually playing into a scapegoat system of a corporate mimetic desire. And then this conspiracy comes in, like, am I actually being controlled by some sort of secret society and all this stuff? And so it turns dark very quickly, and you get wrapped up in it because there's the dopamine and the endorphins that happen when you get agitated from watching something. You see someone behaving a certain way, and your sense of justice and righteousness gets in line, and you want to fight, and come against them. We've lost ourselves, and we've lost the ability to be silent and reflective, and to really have a genuine experience of wholeness.
And on the topic of, these the mimetic desires, the pre-package this, and pre-thought through that, it brings in the way that we're wired. And I gain a lot of insight from Simon Sinek's book. I think it's Leaders Eat Last. He talks about this. He does a really great job at breaking it down. Then I looked into it some more on my own. I think Harvard had a study at some point that they broke down each of these reward chemicals in our brains. And so for those of you who don't know, there's a really easy way to remember the four major ones, the reward chemicals in our brain, in the acronym DOSE. You got D for dopamine, which everybody knows about. That's the only chemical that people talk about, and I understand why. It's the one that's the reward chemical. It's probably even accurate to say it's the most active within our brains. And O is for oxytocin, which is the connection chemical. So if I'm, say a new mother who just bore a child, that is the greatest known moment of human releasing oxytocin. What's interesting about oxytocin, this bonding chemical, as Simon puts it, is that we don't know hardly at all how it works within men, which is interesting. I mean, women, we know quite well how it works and how it doesn't work within women, but within men, there's this physicality that's just not quite happening for research to be thoroughly conducted. And then you got serotonin, which is the leadership chemical, which, when as he describes it, when you're walking across the stage during graduation, you have accomplished this thing, right? And so you are getting this rush of excitement, of proudness, and so are your family who's in the audience, those who have helped you get to this point. And then you got endorphins, which people also know pretty well if you listen to training podcasts or other things. That is the pain reliever. It is simply there to coat over whatever pain is there. So then I think a good side touch here is cortisol is also worth noting, especially in today's day and age, because it's a lot more nefarious. It's under the radar. You don't necessarily know that it's there because we have such civilized society. If we were, in the midst of hand-on-hand combat, you would notice your cortisol levels. But when you are, have a case of the Tuesdays, stressing out because you can't figure out, like, this, you're just stressing over the project you have due this week, or the test that's coming up, or whatever it is. That's a subtle, slow drip of cortisol. And so all these things, these the dose chemicals, these reward chemicals, and then also your cortisol levels play into how people make algorithms.
Right, and so it's not only the physical activities that we engage in that are important in terms of all these chemicals that we're talking about, but it's actually your physical health. Mm-hmm. When you are more sedentary, mm-hmm. You are going to be more subject to cortisol. You're going to be when you gain weight, you're going to have, for men, you're going to have less testosterone, mm-hmm. and more estrogen. I know at least less testosterone, mm-hmm. and so you're going to have consequences from there. And I would say that if you look at those effects of being sedentary, it makes complete sense that we're having the agitation and the anxiety of people who are just behind screens, mm-hmm. for the vast majority of the week.
Right.
And they're not doing anything. They're not getting out and exercising and breathing and causing their bodies to do naturally what they should do. It's interesting that you bring up the issue of drugs and body chemicals. We have far more chemicals in our body that we can produce that would exceed heroin and the effects of heroin,
yeah, right.
and cocaine.
Right.
Like, we can actually naturally, physically produce far greater effects, mm-hmm. in our bodies than just taking a hit of heroin or whatever it is that you do.
Yeah, psychedelics and other things like that.
And so what happens is we have all these alternative, unnatural sources of chemicals, and then you create an addictive society that doesn't have the physical advantages of the activities that would naturally cause your bodies to produce those.
Right.
It is a vicious cycle in so many different ways, and there's intertwining rings that are cycling around each other as well. Mm-hmm. So many different variables.
Yeah. So it plays into when you have gone through staring at an art piece. That's one of the things that we did while we were in college. We went to Italy. We went into Sistine Chapel, and there was, I think, 2 or 3 different sets of artwork that we sat as a whole class, and we just stared at. No talking for an hour. We had a list of things to point out, the lines, the composition, the, heaviness on this side, the colors, the symbols, all kinds of different things that we had. I'll even put up my template, and maybe in this portion of the video for people to check out. And you just sit there for an hour and stare at it. There is a level of accomplishment that comes when you have sat and started to uncover the depth of the artist within his painting. Because, you think that they cannot, integrate all of these things into one image, and you'd be wrong. It is dramatically surprising to me. Like, it just blows your mind. That brings a sense of accomplishment. A little boost of both serotonin and dopamine at the same time. While on the flip side of that, on the negative end of that, right, you have people who are going out and rioting. There's a sense of oxytocin, I'm sure, that they're getting, a sense of community, and a sense of serotonin when you are the one screaming into the microphone and you feel like you're, doing a righteous cause. And a sense of dopamine that, people are cheering you on and this is exactly how it's supposed to be, fighting the system. And so it's interesting to mirror those two things, the religious aspect of it, the political aspect and whatnot. And it's just like we're living in such confusing times that I think, when you brought up earlier, not contemplation per se, but attention.
Attention.
Yeah. It's like if we were to allow our attention spans to chill out, to just stop attending to things and be silent, go sit in grass and challenge our own beliefs by ourselves in quiet and just sit there and actually even understand what we believe. Like if I was to stand up for this cause or that cause, why do I believe that?
Yeah, our attention spans have definitely decreased in the last decade or two.
We're worse than goldfish. I'm pretty sure that's a thing. I could be wrong.
Right.
I'm pretty sure we have technically a smaller attention span than goldfish today.
Our attention spans are much worse than they used to be. There's a great book called Analog Church. We can put that in the show notes as well. And it just demonstrates how that, even by just a few seconds, has reduced in duration. And one of the culprits is just the ever spinning forth of new material where you're not able to sit and meditate and reflect.
Right.
You've got the next swipe, the next scroll up, or down or whatever. And it encourages a lack of attention and a lack of focus. You bring in the religious aspect, something that you and I really didn't grow up with that much, or at all really, was the beauty and the colors that one experiences when you go to an Orthodox church versus, a Lutheran or a Catholic church, those two are still ornate and beautiful, but not nearly as much as an Orthodox church. And then you brought up, your own experience in the non-denominational field, where it's much more bland. There are churches that have no decorations at all, and they're just a square
and it's
rectangle.
It's not out of piety; it's simply out of uncreativity.
Well,
the ones that I grew up in.
Okay, For in some denominations, it is a matter of piety.
Yeah,
absolutely, for sure. So I would say, like, what happens there, and this is my personal experience, having been raised in a Southern Baptist church where we were concerned about the color of the carpet and the beautiful wooden stain of the pews and the choir robes and the beautiful stained glass windows and the lamps that hung from the ceiling were ornate as well. There can be a sense of looking down on other churches and other faith expressions that don't have that. I also was raised not raised, but I also experienced non-denominational worship where we would, consider our own style, having banners and flags and these sorts of things that would be much less common and utilized in a different way. Well, we're better than Church XYZ that's down the road. And so in our visual experience, we not only, because we don't appreciate where we come from and what other values hold, we create this tribal system in our thought. Now, the thing about this is, and this is going back to the music aspect, something I said earlier, I hear music differently than a lot of people who are not musically trained. We take these courses in high school and in college called music appreciation. It's just a simple matter of taking the time with someone who's an expert and a master to learn what to listen for. Or if you're going to a museum and you're looking at paintings, you need to have a master there to show you what to look for.
Yeah.
And you take the time and you appreciate it. And I think, at least in the Orthodox sense, it explains why they have such a better view of the mystery of the human person.
Mm-hmm.
They're much more mystical, and they can sort of rest and be at peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I use those two words specifically. They can rest and be at peace and trust the mystery,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to being overly concerned about the process and systematic in their theology.
And for those who are just listening,
mm-hmm.
when he said better, he put little quotation marks around it.
Right. So qualifying my speech
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
of course. So having, been trained in music, I not only hear differently, but my actual experience is, for me, much more enjoyable. So, and there's reasons for that, because I hear other compositions alluded to in music. Oh, that moment sounded like something that Beethoven would do, or that's exactly what Bach would do in this instance, or, and you can even do this for modern music, such as John Williams. You can hear some similarity in his movie music from one movie to the other, the similar style and even themes that were developed in some cases, or contemporary movies that draw from classical music pieces, such as the Imperial March in Star Wars, or the movie Gladiator, the drawing from a composition written by Gustav Holst, The Planets. And so, like, this knowledge base of appreciation and having been guided by a master or expert, not only increases knowledge, but it also increases the enjoyment of the experience. In biological terms, it's a more proper use of your body, as opposed to bringing in something that's pseudo and provides a temporary and unbalanced experience.
Right. And to add to that as well is, I have communicated in the past, and maybe this is, this is bordering on that less heresy than expected portion of this podcast, but I have instructed a few people to go and listen to the BML podcast with Marty Solomon and Brent Billings. And I know that they may not say this themselves, so I'm not trying to put words in their mouths or whatnot, but I have told people that I think that it is actually even more critical for people today to go and listen to a BML podcast. Go listen through it, or go find somebody who is teaching the same kind of things that the BML podcast is, because it's going to teach you how to read the Bible. It is actually, I would say, more important than going and reading the Bible. Because if you go and read the Bible, you're doing the same thing that we've been saying this whole podcast. You're simply reading it through that lens. It's pre-digested through your agenda, XYZ. No, go get challenged. Marty has this episode where he talks about how, as he was going through his education, I can't remember the rabbi he trained under, but he would start off the whole class, like the first half, if not more, of that class, they would read a portion of scripture, and then they would point out every single problem about that. This contradicts with that doesn't align with this perfectly. This is actually wrong, just factually incorrect. This is just, blah, blah, blah. And you're just sitting there like, there's no hope for this scripture. This person was an idiot. But but it is there to lead you to ask more questions, right? And so if we start to ask questions of the problems, then we get into this more beautiful thing. It's not a prepackaged experience. It is something that is leading you on a journey for you to hopefully come to the same experience as the author. So in that same way, like, my encouragement to people listening to this would seriously be to, like, go and, for one, rest, like, be silent, get away from the noise, get away from the falsity, which is this life. I am currently preaching to the choir when I say that, because I need that message. I need to step away from my screen time and just simply just listening to things, even just other podcasts, political things and whatnot. I just need to stop. I need to stop. We need to stop. And we need to settle down, have a couple of days where you just go no media. Especially today, in the past few months, it feels like it is unwise to step away even from what's going on, from staying up with current events.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That it seems unwise to be detached from what's going on in this whole chaos society.
Like it's dangerous to not know what's going on.
Yeah, it's a form of FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And you want to be in the know, and you want to have a cause to go after, and that sort of thing. In terms of how we read scripture, yet again, just recently I listened to a scholarly discussion with two contrasting viewpoints. And the person who was defending sort of the mainline traditional interpretation of a topic in the Bible simply said the following phrase, and they said, well, you have to go to the plain reading of Scripture. And, instantly just in my mind, like English, the plain meaning of Scripture, the words that are there on the page. But as brilliant as this person was, they were still very superficially referring to a level 1 reading of Scripture, and they're not going deeper into word study and meanings and context and use. So
and there can be life, as Marty points out. There can be life on that level 1.
Yeah, for sure.
But like a pastor can bloom the simple reading of a scripture, but it is not for it might be for the masses, but the real good stuff, the actual meat of the scripture, not just the milk, lies beyond simply the plain English that's on your pages.
And that's the problem with everything we've talked about so far in terms of like what's going on in society and social media, is it's all offering us surface level stuff. And the reason we stay with it is because it doesn't satisfy. We keep going back to it. And Scriptures talks about keep going back. What is it? A creature, is it a pig that goes back to their own? A dog goes back to their own vomit. In this stuff, it's just superficial. It doesn't satisfy. And it keeps us distracted and unself-aware or self-unaware.
Right.
You're
unconsciously unconscious. There's a phrase like you're unconsciously conscious, consciously. Oh no. Is it No, it's not that. It's
you're consciously unconscious.
You're
Right.
You're conscious. You're unconsciously incompetent.
Yeah. Okay.
Versus consciously incompetent. I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
Or I do know what I don't know.
Yeah.
But I still don't know it. I just know that thing over there I don't know.
Do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? It's this situation where the less you know, you actually think you're smarter. And so it's just we have this tendency to, and I hope I said that correctly. Please, in the show,
I'll correct you.
Correct me. But it's like we're all amateurs commenting on stuff that we don't really know what we're talking about, and we think we're more competent than we really are.
And then the less the more you know, the more you know you don't know.
Exactly.
On the flip side of the Dunning-Kruger effect, if that's how it is.
Yeah. It's just the last thing I wanted to just emphasize is just how we're drawn to this superficial element of knowledge and experience in life when there are things that are so much deeper, so much richer. I went to the post office last week and I had to mail something off, a package there, and I was busy writing something, sitting in the car writing something, and I just happened to look up and there was a group of school children that were being walked by their teachers, and they were all in line together, like school children are. They're probably, I would say, maybe kindergarten, first grader, second grader max. And it was fun just to watch them walk in their own particular way. There was one girl who was doing the Hawaiian hula arm gestures.
Yeah.
And she was doing that, and then kids were kind of looking around, and you know, and it was just like they had their own unique things, and it just brought this delight, you know, in the moment, that was just completely out of nowhere and brought a little bit more depth and meaning to the moment. And my thought was that because we're so superficially minded with all these things going on in society, we forget how much we're loved. We do not know or experience the depth of the love that the Father has for us. And so this moment of watching these kids just be themselves and enjoy themselves without any pretense, and in all this superficiality stuff that we get wrapped up in that has no real, you know, lasting value, that we are deeply loved, and to take time to make room for that,
and even to push back, like to flip this around rather, is and maybe it's a pushback, I don't know, is that like it's not just simply we don't know how much we're loved, because I think we come out knowing how much we're loved. I think it's more of like we don't realize that we're not as unsafe as we think we are. Like we're not as in danger as we think we are. And sure, there's a side of us that, you know, we can perceive what I just said as mortal danger. It's like, well, when people are being assassinated, maybe we are, just on both sides. Now, but on the flip side of that, we are not as in danger when it comes to the fact that Jesus is calling us out as within him there is a being beyond this being that we are eternally safe in. And so we could end our lives today, like our lives could be ended rather today, and we are still safe, which is just radically, it repositions our mindset when you consider how, and we were talking the other night about how early church fathers and mothers were pacifistic to a very large degree, if not to a total degree. They would allow themselves to be brutalized, to be murdered for their faith, because they understood that they weren't actually in that much danger. They were in mortal danger, but when you've discredited the gospel, then you start to concern yourself with the mortal dangers and violences of this world.
Right. So the similar idea of the assassin's bullet, the reason the assassin's bullet exists is because the person behind the trigger thinks that taking of a life is the ultimate
safety at that point, in a way.
No, the taking of the life is the ultimate damage that you could do to someone. You know, to them, their earthly life is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You know, and as you observed, the earlier Christians, they knew that their life was safe and secure.
It's a permanent thing within God.
And there's so many testimonies of how well early Christians died, that it actually was something that became a witness.
Yeah.
You know, these martyrs to the truth and vitality of Christ. You know, liars don't die for the faith.
Right.
That's been used of the apostles. And of course, you know, the ultimate example is the witness of Jesus on the cross, where the Roman soldier sees someone who is dying in the most horrific way, and that is designed to shame and humiliate, but Christ still upholds his personal honor and integrity by saying, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. He gives up the spirit, And the soldier says, surely that was the Son of God.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that Christ was not holding on to this earthly existence as the end all of experiences, but was safe in his Father's hands, that is huge. And I think this is a lesson to learn as well. And you're very right to point that out, that this issue of being safe or being in danger is very important. And if you feel like you're in danger, you're going to be clasping at straws, which is why we're fed and are feeding on all this superficiality. And so anyway, how about we encourage people to check out the links.
There's a couple of housekeeping things there.
Right. Yeah. So Less Heresy Than Expected is a part of a larger ministry called Icons Read Gospel.
Yeah.
And we encourage you, if you are so inclined, to offer financial support for that. We will be making ways for that to happen and posting information, and it is a way for people to come together for dialogue and conversation like this. So we're going to have, when we get together on a monthly basis or bi-monthly basis, we're going to have in the coming months more intentional conversations like this. Where we're discussing just what's going on in society. I think it's important, but also just getting away and having retreats and getting away from all the busyness and the chaos and current events.
Yeah, so if you would like to support the ministry, that is Icons Read Gospel, we'll have the link for you to go check out the link tree that we have set up. We also have a Give Butter link we just set up that you can do a recurring donation as well, which is pretty awesome. Thanks to Jeremy, his hard work there. And if you have any other requests, topics, conversations that you'd love to get into, or people that you'd encourage us to bring on the episodes, to have certain kinds of conversations, we'd love to entertain those. But I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah, it's a 3-phrase encouragement: like and share.
Oh yeah, like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe.
That's 3 words. There you go.
So, the last thing I wanted to say is pause for station identification. I forget what it was. It was something profound.
It was something profound.
Something profound and amazing.
Not to toot your own horn, but
yeah, right.
Well, if you can't remember what it was, it must not have been that important.
Yeah, right.